Thank you, Bob, for the introduction. And I know I'm between you and your travel or Friday night or Friday afternoon activities, so I'll do it in a succinct manner, but definitely it's so important to skip this part, right? So I always consider myself as a student in pharmaceutics since my college years. Those were 20-some years ago, 30 years almost, right? So I'm still learning. I learned a lot throughout these 2 days. And I'm so thrilled and amazed by the caliber of science in this room and discussed, and also the participation from our academic experts, well-known, world-renowned experts in this room. Okay, I feel really thrilled, and also our industry colleagues, right, sharing their case studies, and FDA colleagues or regulatory bodies, our colleague members from EMA, PMDA, of course, in addition to FDA colleagues, are all here. This shows the criticality and importance of this topic, right? So before I go further, I really want to echo what Bob just mentioned. Big thanks to everyone in this room to put this big event. This is so critical. I call it a milestone in biopharmaceutics development or science, right? So with that being said, I want to first of all thank M-CERSI and also FDA teams for putting this workshop together. And actually, this is not an easy task. The preparation started about 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. And so the team put it together with a lot of effort, but this shows our dedication to pharmaceutical science, or biopharmaceutics specifically, right? And also I want to thank our AAM leaders, Giselle, Bob Gaines, for being here and supporting this workshop, right, from years ago till today. They were yesterday and today. They were deeply involved in this. And also same big thanks to our pharma experts. I know they're in the audience, maybe they have left, for supporting and joining this event, right? That shows the collaboration and also the interest from our industry groups, right, colleagues as well. And of course, big thanks to our RL speakers and such a big event. I learned a lot. Yesterday I was not here, but I studied all the slides, learned so much, and listened to the whole day conversation today, right? So it's really a lot of work in there. So of course, breakout session, I was in the last breakout session. There's a lot of thought-provoking conversations, right? Really appreciate it. And again, everyone here is amazing for joining this conversation. And just a quick personal reflection, right? I'm a trained formulator, and I've been doing reviews for over 10 years. And every time, a lot of times I do a gut check when I look at application. I said that if this product goes into the market, do I have the confidence to recommend it or prescribe it to my loved ones? Hopefully they never need it, but do I have the confidence, right? So oftentimes I refer to biopharmaceutics data, BAB data, to substantiate my recommendation, to say, okay, I feel comfortable, right, to prescribe to my loved ones. So that's the consciousness check, constantly going, not only myself, but also my colleagues. So this is so important in such a way to consider, right? And also, if we think the other part of the criticality of biopharmaceutics as a cornerstone within our ecosystem, at least within the OPQ, Office of Pharmaceutical Quality ecosystem, is that we have this, maybe a lot of you guys know, we have this integrated quality assessment team and disciplines, right? The involved disciplines, one of them is biopharmaceutics, equally important as drug substance, drug product, microbiology, manufacturing, facility evaluation. They're equally important, right? So biopharmaceutics is one of the major cornerstones in our quality assessment, approving new drugs and generic drugs as well, right? And also in my mind, I see that biopharmaceutics is really bridging all the things formulators are doing to internal immutable performance. So that shows the criticality. Another piece, but Guant and Hailing, if you don't mind, I want to share something, right, about them. They have been product quality leaders, drug product quality leaders for maybe 10, 15 years before they continued their career to being leaders in biopharmaceutics, right? Now they're each leading one division in OPQ. And you can see they have profound understanding for products, and now they're leading biopharmaceutics area, right? So they're paving the way together under Lauren's leadership and a lot of support in the room here from our offices. So this is showing that the core and the criticality of biopharmaceutics, right? So that's one way to kind of reflect and think about why we're here today and yesterday, right? And just speak about yesterday, and Dr. Lawrence Yu sitting in the back challenged us for a paradigm shift, to shift the dissolution from to be a QC method to be more predictive tool, right? Be more patient-oriented, clinically relevant. So as far as I learned, I see is that now we need to put this together and implement it. So I see a few things, or a number of things actually, to materialize this vision or paradigm shift, right? I wouldn't go into the details because you guys know way more than I do, but a number of things I see. One is really to operationalize this biopharmaceutics risk assessment framework. I see people nodding when we're talking about this, so it's scientifically sound and it's motivated, right? So we have this motivation, agreement, consensus. Let's embrace it, give it a try, and submit it in your applications, right? So this will educate and help our assessors to know more about how this framework is being used in real life and educate us to further advance this framework, right? And the other part is really more of linking to the medium risk problem, right? We talked a lot yesterday. I learned from a lot of the slides, right? So this is where there's still a lot of science to be developed, and regular expectations are still evolving, right? Divergences are still out there across health authorities. So in a sense that I want to echo what Becky was saying earlier today, to help with this issue, let's collaborate, develop shared examples, right? Shared case studies, modeling approaches, so that we can better help each other, industry, academia, and regulatory bodies, right? So we can work together to develop the science in this area for medium risk problems. And the other part I really think about linking to the foundational ideas for QBD. So in this conversation, in this workshop, we talk about the bioequivalence safe space. I really want to call for action to expand the usage or the use of BE safe space, right? So I see this is a strategic investment from our industry colleague perspective. So for instance, if you really embrace this BE safe space, not only it will help you to support and develop better clinical relevant dissolution specification, and then also think about life cycle management. When you do post-approval changes, right, if you have this solid understanding within the space, if you move within the space, you don't have to repeat your BE study, which is very costly, right? So that's kind of like your return on investment. So that's one way I see it as a drug product person. So, and then maybe a few more things to share. The other piece is really that in order to embrace this paradigm shift, we need tools, we need models, right? So it's very important that if our industry colleagues, academic colleagues developing and validating these PBBM, PBPK, digital twins, machine learning models, right? In helping biopharmaceutics in developing dissolution models, please, let's share, let's talk to each other. So this will help us, because one piece is the fear factor. The fear factor is that we don't know what's in the model, right? We don't know what's the rationale, the input parameters, output parameters, how much validation has been done for certain models, right? If we know such information, if you share with us, quote unquote, regulators, and we'll learn more about the models, more about the details and validation, the power and strength of it, right? The ruggedness about it, right? So this will enhance the regulatory confidence. And then we can further, this is going to be a self-reinforced cycle to better adopt these models, right? So that's another piece I really want to call and pledge for action that we work together, right? And maybe the last piece is really that is really adopting a totality of evidence approach. Many conversations already, right? So I wouldn't elaborate much on that. And then I guess not last, but one of the other key points mentioned a number of times throughout yesterday and today is the global harmonization. So this is where I mentioned we have our AM colleagues, pharma colleagues, we have our EMA colleagues here, PMDA colleagues here, FDA colleagues here, distinguished academic professors and experts in this room, right? So let's call for actions and accelerate global harmonization. If you go back tomorrow, you're called for an ICH work group, right, committee. Please advocate for this. And Lawrence is on some ICH committee, I'm on some ICH committee. We'll continue to push for this, right, work together. So this is another piece very important that we call for action, like we all advocate for this new paradigm, right? Otherwise, in closing, I would say this workshop is a milestone in my mind. But this is not the last conversation. We'll continue to work together and collaborate to further push this paradigm to be a reality. There are a lot of things in the thinking, in the making. So I hope that maybe in the next 6 months or 12 months, we'll see each other again here, and then we'll show the evidence, we'll show the progress. So with that, I wish everyone a safe trip back home and enjoying the weekend. Really, really hope to see you in the next workshop regarding biopharmaceutics, the new paradigm that we're embracing right now. With that, thank you again, really appreciate it.